Well, I think what most people don't know about me is I was born in a really lower middle class family, and born in Texas. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I lived in 5 states by the time I was 6, and have very little memory of it. But we settled in Wheeling, West Virginia, where I grew up primarily, and my father was somewhat abusive, and so my mother divorced him. And I got a stepfather who really raised me from the time I was about 6 until graduate high school. And I was a typical middle class, by then, suburban kid in West Virginia, except for the fact that my mother was an alcoholic and my father was a workaholic and sometimes drank as well. So it created a lot of compassion and empathy for me, because I'm very what's called hypervigilant. I notice every little thing because I had to survive in those families. And also, I think I have a huge sensitivity to pain, and that was really how I got started. The Chicken Soup for the Soul books, which really catapulted my career, those came about when one of my students, some lecture I was giving, said, "You know that story about the puppy you just told?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Is that in the book anywhere?" I said, "No." And she said, "Well, it needs to be." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "My daughter needs to read that story." "Well, just tell her the story." "I can't remember. I need to see it in the book." When you're a kid, you have an impulse to act, you act. You want to touch the cat, you want to throw the cat out the window. You want to stick your hand into the VCR and put peanut butter in there, you do. The problem is, as we're growing up, we get conditioned by our parents and our caretakers and our siblings and our teachers and coaches and nuns and all these different people that come into our life. Don't do that. Stop. That's bad. You know, we get slapped and told we're not okay. And so after a while, when we go to do something, we're looking, is it okay if I do this, you know, instead of just doing it. All my sons and my stepson and my stepdaughter have been great risk takers. They're all artists. One's a drummer, one's a hip-hop singer. One is he's in high school, but he's in the school play. He just had a lead in the school play. He sings. And then my daughter's a singer, and my other son is very athletic. He's a surfer. He snowboards as well. And he's always inventing games and trying out new things, always on the edge, you know, always coming in with cuts and scrapes, which I love, because they're out there on the edge of their potential, exploring how they can keep pushing it. And it's not that they never get scared or they never feel rejected and have to go through things, but they seem to rebound very quickly. Every one of us knows what we want. We can feel it. I'll just tell people, if you could have anything you want and there were no limitations, what would you do? And everyone has an answer. Little kids, big adults. And that's their core essence. And if we all just fully do that which we're passionate about and understand the principles for how to bring that into being, then I believe the world will work perfectly. And that's why I do what I do. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and to share these ideas with you and really help you take your life to the next level, which is what we all want to do, or we wouldn't come out to these kind of events. I'm going to start by sharing with you a number of very important critical ideas. And the first one is this one. There's a friend of mine. His name is Orrin Hudson, and he was the Alabama State chess champion. And he grew up in the ghettos of Birmingham and became a chess champion. And he was the #1 Cadillac dealer and became a professional speaker. And I was talking to him. We were having lunch together down in New Orleans. And it was at a professional speakers convention. And we were talking about my new book, The Success Principles. It was about to come out. And he said, you know, to me, success is like knowing the combination to a lock. He said, if you know the combination to a lock, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, white or black, Hispanic or Asian, you're 55 or you're 16, your IQ is 150 or your IQ is 93. If you know the combination, the lock has to open. And the problem is, most of us are going through life and we don't know the combination. We maybe have 3 of the 4 numbers we need, but we don't have them all. And so the idea is that what I'm about, what I've spent 30 years of my life doing, was researching what is the combination to the lock, interviewing people at the top of their careers, whether they were athletes, politicians, people in business, etc., and saying, what is this combination? What is the system? And if you know a system always produces a predictable result. You know, if you use my Aunt Betty's apple pie recipe, it always comes out really good if you do what it says, because it's a system that's proven. And so I want to share with you the basics of a system that works. No matter what you're starting out at, wherever you are, it will work for you. And you may remember oilman J. Paul Getty. He was at one time the richest guy in the United States. And he said there are 3 secrets to success. It's very simple. He said, you have to get up early, you have to work hard, and he said, find oil. It's that simple. Okay? Now, obviously, it's not that simple. If it were, we'd all just go do that. And so I wrote this book called The Success Principles, and in it there are 64 principles of success. 64. Now, that's a lot. A lot of people go, you know, that's like too much to learn. So what I've done for you today, we're going to cover about 8, 9 of those principles, the core essence, the necessary building blocks that if you do them, they'll take you to the next level. Now, the promise I always make people is threefold. If you do this work and you apply it to your life, and the key is apply it, not just listen to it, but put it into practice. Number 1, you can double your income. And number 2, you can double your time off. And you can create more balance in between your work life and your family life and have a lot more fun. And you can do that in 3 years or less. Now, how many people here, if you could double your income and double your time off in 3 years or less, would be interested in learning how to do that? Okay. Good response. We're talking to the right crowd. So basically, how do we do that? And I first of all want to tell you that it is possible, because a lot of times people go, well, how do I know I can really trust you? Well, I've done it in my own life, and I've taught hundreds of thousands of people to do this around the world. Just a couple of quick little stories here. We work with a company called Remax of Indiana. It's a real estate company. And we taught them these principles. And in the first year, 65% of the people doubled their income. By the end of the second year, over 85% of the people had doubled their income. And the company had doubled its total revenues. And went on, many people tripled and quadrupled their income in 2 years or less. Okay? In my own life, here's one of my students, Scott Schilling. He said, I took your training, and I learned these principles. And literally, he said, I made 22% of my 365-day salary in just 2 days after working with you. Now, think about that. That's a fifth of his yearly income in 2 years. I mean, 2 days, rather. Look at my own life. I have a Guinness Book of World Records. I had 7 books appearing on the New York Times bestseller list on the same day. Stephen King was the only guy that had 6 before that, and he had done that book, The Green Mile, and it came out in 6 chapters. No one's ever done that since. Here's a check written to me for $1,130,328.35. It's the first check our publisher had ever written for $1 million. He actually put a smiley face in his signature, if you can look real. He was so happy to have to write that kind of check. And that represented 3 months of book royalties for the first Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And that year, Mark and I both made $6 million, my co-author, and I split a $12 million royalty on that. Now, I share that with you not to impress you about me, but to impress upon you if little Jack Campfield, who grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia, and who graduated from the half of the class that made the top half possible, can do this, then literally anybody can do it. It's not about brain power. It's about knowing the principles. Gravity always works. If I drop this, it always falls. It's never floated. Never had that happen in my life. And so if you know the principles, you can use them. Like we can make water flow downhill. All the drainage systems in your house take advantage of that. Gravity works. So what are the principles, again, that work for us? Now, Jim Rohn says you can't hire other people to do your push-ups for you. I love that quote. I can't hire. What's your name? I can't hire Robin to go to the gym and work out for me and have my muscles get more toned. I can't hire you to meditate for me and I'm going to get a higher consciousness. I can't hire you to do my planning for me at night so my day is more organized the next day. All the things I'm going to teach you are things that you have to do. They're things that no one else can do for you. There are things. You can delegate certain things in your life, but not your health care, not your meditation, not your exercise, not these principles and strategies that we're going to be learning here today. So the first principle, building on that, says you must take 100% responsibility for your life and your results. And what that means is you have to give up all blaming, all complaining, all excuse-making, all looking out at the world and saying, well, if the world were different, then I would be better off. Right now, we're all upset about the Chinese and the Indians are using more oil, which is sending the oil prices up, and we wish that wasn't happening. Some of you may love the president we have. Some of you may not. We go through all these things where we say,